that men and women are in some way made for each other, that our sexual desires are not just an appetite, they point out, and that part of what they're pointing to is this possibility of this very distinct union that's not, there are a lot of good relationships, there's a lot of kinds of relationships, there are a lot of families that are not this thing, but that at its heart there's something
special?
So what is lost? What is lost if we say this word marriage, which has this deep meaning to people, and to at least some of us, not to all of us, but to some of us, it has these roots in these human realities. It's this attempt to integrate, these things that are hard to integrate in a special way.
At some point, because remember, the question is about.
No.
I'm trying to remind you, the question is about how.
I'm doing my best to explain to you. If it were easy to explain, you would have gotten it already, right? Okay. The reason it's hard to explain is that, as I said, we're using words in different ways. So when we talk, we don't understand each other, right? So I'm trying to work around that and to try to give you this glimpse of how it is that intelligent people who don't hate you disagree with you. Even though if I can give you that glimpse, you'll probably still disagree and think I'm wrong. But right now, you don't see it.
I fully recognize that intelligent people who don't hate me do disagree.
Okay, but you don't see. I mean, literally, you don't see how there can be any possible connection. Whereas there's a whole other set of people to whom the connection is crystal clear. Right? I mean, there are some of them are in this room.
And that could be because I'm confused. It could be because you're confused.
I'm not. That doesn't say which one of us is right or wrong. I'm just saying that the difficulties of working through this, and I'm sorry, I know this is long, but you're interrupting me because you're not, so I'm trying to get back to your question. But the difficulty is that it's hard for us to even see, I see your argument actually, but you don't see mine, okay? So this thing called marriage, which has had these deep roots, and it points to the reality that there's something, men and women, they need each other. Their sex we need to do something particular if it's not going to hurt children. Okay? This word, with all of its valences and its meanings and the institutions and the features, is now going to be dedicated to a new proposition. Very clearly, okay, gay marriage stands for the proposition that marriage is about. The core feature of marriage is to find caretaking love to celebrate between adults, right? That has to be the core feature, and whether children are involved or not is now incidental and unrelated, okay? How is this going to affect people? Okay, well, first of all, I think it's going to make it really, as I said, I think it affects me very directly. I think it's very hard for me to go around and, if you take a word and it now means something else, I can't go around saying marriage really matters because children need a mother and father. I might be able to go around and say marriage really matters because it's better for children to have two adults than one adult in their life. But that's not the same thing, right? So it's a change. Insofar as culture matters and the ideas matter, you've taken an idea that is, it's important at the symbolic and cultural level to many, many people. But it's also, you've taken this institution that at least had. Okay? You can have a big argument about whether it still has this purpose, and therefore there are people who say, well, John Roush would be one of them probably. Yeah, marriage used to have that purpose, but it doesn't really anymore. It's a lovely idea, but it's past history, right? But certainly for most of our history, people did understand this.
I don't want to keep interrupting you, Maggie, but I want to make sure I push. If I can push the ball down the field, I want to push the ball down the field. And so I was trying to focus on your argument that children need mothers and fathers, and you seem to be moving into what I take it as an importantly related argument for you, that marriage has this meaning that
it's the same argument. That's what you're saying. Like, I'm switching the topic, but it's the same topic for me.
Okay.
Maybe
we need to work on this in the book. But let me try. Let me try going at it from a different angle.
Sure.
You want to maintain that there's something special, and now I'm going to focus specifically on the male-female thing. You want to maintain that there is something special about the male-female bond. as a society, embrace marriage for gays and lesbians, we won't be able to say that anymore. And here's what I want to
Especially if we embrace the idea of marriage equality.
Marriage equality.
So in theory, you could do it in some way that wouldn't, but in reality, the heart of the gay marriage idea is that there is no difference.
Let me propose an analogy for you. I think there's something very special about parenting. I admire people who are parents. I'm not going to be one of those people. People ask me, do you want children? I say, to shovel the snow, yes. Otherwise, no.
But they're not very good at it.
No, they're not. Yeah, some people are not meant to have children. I'm one of those. But I admire people who do. And I think there's something special about that. But there are plenty of married couples who don't have children, and we still recognize their relationships as marriage. So it's possible for us in those cases to say, look, there's something special here, so not all marriages have this special thing, but we can still recognize these other things as marriage. Why couldn't you say, look, I think there's something special about the male-female bond that John and Mark don't have, that I can still recognize their relationship as marriage? Why doesn't this give you the same option to say, I recognize something special here, but that's still marriage?
If you say that it's discrimination to treat these two things differently, the name-calling thing is not the heart of it, it's the idea behind it. You say that it's discrimination to treat these two things differently because they're the same in their essential features. You're really saying that the things that are distinctive about the male-female bond are either not important enough to notice or disconnected from the purposes of marriage. Now,
Am I saying that about parenting?
You are saying that about the sex. That's what you actually think. You think that marriage and children are disconnected because there's a lot of married people who don't have children.
I won't tell you what you think. Don't tell me what I think.
Well, that's what I got from what you said. Well, I'm trying to figure out why it's so hard for you to follow the argument I'm making. And it's hard for a lot of people, I get it. But I also know there's a lot of people who are following it very well, and they understand it. So, why is it so hard for us to actually understand? And again, I don't think it's hard for me to understand your argument. I think it's
because
very
I'm
clear,
lucid.
very brilliant.
I'm lucid.
Yeah.
So, all right, I want to give you an opportunity to ask me some questions.
So, all right, let's go back to that. If the question is, what's the heart of what marriage is? So I'll give you 4 quick questions, and maybe you can give me 4 quick answers.
Yeah.
Okay, so why is it so are these core features of marriage? Can you tell us why? So my questions are, why 2? Why 2 and only 2? Why sex? Why is the law involved? Let's put those 3, and then I have a related question. If one of the features of marriage is social recognition, is it legitimate to ask that you actually persuade a majority of the people that this is a marriage? Or do you have the right to insist that it be treated like a marriage even though the majority of people don't agree with you? How do you integrate your understanding that there's a social institution here with the reality that as persuasive as you are, you haven't persuaded a majority of the people? Where do our views count in your schema of how we agree on what the public meaning of marriage is?
All right, let me do the last question first if I can, because I think that it's an important question and a difficult question. I think that we are guaranteed equal treatment under the law. As you know, I'm not a constitutional scholar, but I think that there is something screwy about the fact that I can marry a convicted felon serving a life sentence in prison, as long as that person's a woman. But I can't marry Mark that I've had this loving relationship with for 8 years and counting. We care for each other, we do all these things we do. I think that involves the law treating people differently, because there it's not about children, it's not about this being a desirable situation for children, because I'm pretty sure you would agree better for the child to be at home with me and Mark than to have the mother serving a life sentence in prison. All else being equal, and maybe you want to add something to it. I hope you would agree. Maybe you wouldn't agree. And again, I'm not